Good evening and welcome to the Nuhra Foundation's Wednesday session. I'm Reverend Hanny Freiwat, and I'll open with the Lord's Prayer in the Aramaic language, the way Jesus spoke it over 2,000 years ago, and then we'll dive in. أعوند وشمية نتقداش شماخ تأتي ملكوتاخ نهوي صوينخ إكند وشمية أبر حولان لحمة سمكانا يومنا واشوقلان حوبين إكنا داب حنان شوقن لحيوين لا تعلن لأنسيونا إلا بصا من بيشة مثول دي لاخي ملكوثة حي لو تشبحته العالم عالمين آمين. So we have the holidays coming up. Quick announcement: Dr. Eric will be speaking next week. Then we will take a break, and the next time it will be January, I believe 7th is the Wednesday that we'll come back and start speaking again. So enjoy your holidays. Happy holidays. This is the last time I speak this year. And Dr. Eriko will continue some for the students who are studying the Aramaic language with him on Saturdays. He will continue that, I think, a few more Saturdays. But check your email and make sure that the sessions are on. So those are the announcements. Last time I spoke about Jesus starting a very peaceful revolution and how he went about it, and how he knew for his teachings, for him to bring back the vision of Abraham and the visions of the prophets and bring in peace to the world, not just to a specific group of people. He had to open up the filter. Usually revolutions, when you study them, they start with a core group, a group of thinkers, sometimes a group in the military, sometimes a group of rebels, and their goal is typically political, nationalistic. And for me to refer to Jesus as a revolutionary, it's not to put him in the same category as what we typically think of as revolutionaries, because, as I said, they usually have an ideology that serves them and people they care about. Jesus cared about all, and he knew that the spiritual revolution that he was bringing to existence was going to elevate all societies all at once. And it needed a vast majority of people, not just a select few, to participate in it. So, and the select, so you might argue, well, he had the apostles and disciples, and he didn't. He selected people and asked them to join him to teach them how to go about doing the same thing that he was doing. So he wasn't creating an exclusive club. That's why it's always like the apostles and disciples. Now that quickly changed, because as soon as Jesus died and his early followers came back together, that a hierarchy developed and a mission developed. And early on, it wasn't, because their goal was to go spread the good news. So, I mean, that's what this, the holiday season, if you read carefully the message that the early followers wrote into the life of Jesus, it was about bringing joy to the world, bringing the joyful news. The Bible itself was called the joyful news. That what we call the New Testament. So they really wanted to go like, listen, we have a secret that we want to share with everybody of how to bring peace to everyone on earth. Versus, we have a secret and we're going to keep it amongst us, and we're going to serve, our purpose and get, more powerful and bigger. And some of the revolutions start with trying to help their people. Eventually, they get scared and they start worrying about their status and the seat and so forth. And very few times do you hear about revolutionaries who actually came to power and then quit. And then when it's like, okay, we changed the system, now we have a better system, so see you, I'm going back to my normal life. And some revolutions have those people, but then they're typically labeled as scary people, and they go hunt them down because they know too much. So that's but the Jesus revolution was to take these initially, as I said, when he was recruiting the last time I spoke, he was recruiting young, in many cases uneducated fishermen from the communities he was around. And when he brought him in, he actually started from scratch with them. He wanted them to be pure. He didn't want them to be already influenced by religion, influenced by even life itself. So he picked. He was very selective. But then where I closed last time is with the beginning of what we call the Sermon on the Mount, with the blessed are, or the Beatitudes as we call them. It's this building an action mentality that was going to spread amongst the masses. So, and this is the key. His revolution was based on the masses, not on the select few. His revolution was all inclusive. And we see that throughout his ministry. He was constantly reaching out outside the boundaries of what society expected him to do or religion expected him to do. And he was reaching out. He was reaching out to the Samaritans. He was reaching out to the Phoenicians and the Canaanites. He was reaching out and to the Roman soldiers. Because he knew for this to succeed, it can't be locked down on a select few. So continuing from that perspective, he talks about that I'm continuing with Matthew, and one thing about him being a revolutionary, I always said that Jesus was on the run most of his ministry. So and he did, because every time he was discovered, and he crossed people, they went after him and they were going to kill him. And this, you're talking about Galilee 2,000 years ago. You're talking about a society that could be very violent, and a place that was experiencing a lot of violence, with the Romans being there and revolutionaries being there. So it wasn't this easygoing era in the history. And soon after Jesus's death, there was the destruction of the temple and another scattering of the Jewish tribes. And when you're in that kind of stage, everything is like, it feels like that society is bubbling, and people are scared, and Jesus warns towards the end of his ministry. It's like, it might be too late. You might want to start moving away from this area, because it is going to blow up. And it did. Being reflective, spending a lot of time in the desert and observing. He constantly, as you read his parables, he's constantly observing and watching what's going on in nature, in society, with the Romans, with the areas around them. And he traveled a lot, so he had a lot of personal exposure. Well, a lot of people in his time lived in Nazareth and stayed in Nazareth and died in, maybe made a couple pilgrimages to Jerusalem. But in his case, as soon as he declared his ministry, he went into the desert, and then he tried to go back to Nazareth, and Nazareth did not want him. They saw him as dangerous, as not basically staying within the lanes that were established: Sadducees, Pharisees, scribes. So they didn't know what to do with him. He was saying things and doing things that challenged their status quo, and even his own family was trying to keep him from doing these things. That's why I often kind of I'm amused, let's say, when people mention his mom or his brother or as like these, important figures in Christianity. And maybe after his death, some of them played a role and woke up and joined the movement. But during his time, his family was almost against him. I mean, this plainly written, and I covered it in many of my talks, so I'm not going back to it. One key thing, if I have time, I'll go and kind of pick at Jesus's stories when he's running for his life constantly. And you don't see that when you see like plays about Jesus or movies about Jesus, that he was a wanted man by in many cases, and came this close to dying many times. But then he talks to the group of people, the many, and tells them, "You are indeed the light of the world. A city that is built upon a mountain cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand." So you see it's like when you start seeing these communities, I remember, I don't know when it was, like I think in the 90s when we started talking about here politically. I don't remember the administration. It might have been Clinton, might have been Obama, but they would start talking about these centers of light that spreading across the country, bringing enlightenment into the communities and improving the whole society in those areas. So this is, Jesus was thinking that way. If you and look at who the you are, you the humble, you the ones who mourn, you the meek, you who hunger for and thirst for justice. So the people who are oppressed by the system, okay, you are the ones who are going to bring this kingdom to existence. You're going to, so he's lifting up the many. And how many of us feel day to day, that the laws are oppressing us, the governments are oppressing us, the political systems, the different forces, and this is global. I'm not talking about just one country. Everywhere that people feeling oppressed, Jesus was talking to them. And those are usually many. It's not like the one oppressed guy who lives, 3 blocks from here. Almost everybody is working really hard and not able to pay their bills and be comfortable or retire or get health care or have the same lifestyle that they show us on TV as the lifestyle to have, travel, eat in restaurants, don't worry, drive the nice fast cars, upgrade your car every 6 months. That's the life that we are sold on TV and saying, hey, you need to reach for that. But the bulk of the people watch that and say, I hopefully I'll be able to pay my heating bill. So Jesus was talking to those people, the people who are feeling that pressure and being taxed to death and being pushed to death. And he was telling them, you are the light of the world. Think about what that is doing, is lifting them up. And you are going to be known as the children of God because they are the children of God. And he was re-emphasizing that. And now he's saying, and when you start shining, you can't hide that light. The people who are doing these good works, they'll be spotted a mile away. People will know about them. People will reach out to them. And that's how the power shifts. It shifts from the people who are hungry for power versus the people who are actually bringing goodness to humanity, bringing goodness to their society, their community. And you start knowing them. And in many cases, they become the ones who actually get elected to the next office. And hopefully they don't get corrupt like the system that they are replacing. And in many, I mean, throughout the history, I also went through some books in the last couple of years showing you how the early Christians became influential all the way to the times of early Islamic empire, not just the Islam coming into contact with Christianity, which benefited greatly from that, but also as the leaders of the Muslim nation, the Umayyads and the Abbasides and so forth. If you read in their history, a lot of Christian wazirs and advisors were a part of their community. The Mongols, even when they came across, the Mongols were penetrated by the Christians, and it changed some of their generals into Christianity because of their meekness, because of their love of service. And they calmed them down. They calmed that angry Mongol mindset as they started also to settle into an empire. Then the Christians became the trusted people with money, with economic advice, and things like that. So that's what Jesus is talking about when he's saying, when you have a lamp and you have darkness, one little lamp or one little candle can light up a room. And he was counting on these people, So it's all in sequence. He's building his movement, and he's building it on anybody. He constantly said, "He who has ears, let him hear. He who has eyes, let him see," because he knew that some people are going to not quite get it and or be pessimistic about it. And he also knew that some of them will get all excited at once, and then once they leave and get back into their routine, they'll forget about Jesus and his message. So he was playing a very long game of converting communities. And that's why he traveled and he spoke in different areas. He knew that he wasn't just going to go sit on top of a mountain with 12 fishermen and basically give them all the secrets of the kingdom and then die away or quit or go march to Jerusalem like they wanted him to do and overthrow the Roman office and take over the temple and so forth. That's what they were seeing. But he was slowly corrupting the masses to become, and I say corrupting is because of his parable about the woman who puts yeast in flour. He was doing that. He was putting yeast in the communities. Wherever he went, he put a foundation of his teachings for that community to rise and rise in goodness, like bread rises. So he was looking at a rising of many different communities all at once and then spreading that globally. And that's exactly how the early movement took place. And that's why Paul was impacted. Now, Paul did not study under Jesus, and he was heavily educated and had doctrines and studied those doctrines. And that's why Paul and Jesus are not the same, and their writing is not the same. So, and another thing, so he goes, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and what? And glorify your Father in heaven. And that's important. There are so many places that the Christians miss about Jesus, which is this very specific goal of his. Let everybody see your goodness. For what reason? To glorify the Father, not to say, hey, that's one of Jesus's people, glorify Jesus. He never wanted that glorification. He wanted, and there are many places. I was just flipping pages in the Bible where he tells them, even if you don't believe in me, believe in the one who sent me. And he felt that he was sent by God. So I'm giving you stuff that is bigger than Jesus, the man. It's bigger than anything. It's back to glorify the Father. And he used the Father, and I think Dr. Errico talked about this last Saturday when we had our gathering, how Jesus was so wanting to bring God into the lives of people day to day that he used the Father, a family figure. He was creating a global family, and he wanted the guidance of the beloved, the one who gives everything. His description of God constantly was about, would a father do this? A good father wouldn't do that. That's how God is. He's, look at the birds in the sky. The Father takes care of them. So we are, the equal to that, or even more. He dresses the flowers. The flowers are beautiful. You're beautiful too. So he's constantly lifting those people who are mourning, hungry for justice, and the ones who are being, stepped on in society because they are meek, or they're the peacemakers who put themselves in danger constantly, trying to bring peace to their communities. They put themselves amongst people who are fighting, warring, wanting to kill one another, wanting to take each other's property. The peacemakers is it's a very dangerous job. Yeah, and we see it today whenever we hear about the United Nations sending peace forces to a war zone or a border area between two warring nations or groups of people. Those peacemakers end up dying a lot, or in danger a lot. And sometimes they get lucky and they get told, hey, get out of here, things are going to get hot. But to this day, a peacemaker, somebody who's going there to reestablish a community that's suffering, or be a buffer between warring parties, they put themselves in the line of fire, literally. So that's why when Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God," because they are putting their lives on the line. So, so to glorify the Father, do, do not suppose that I have come to weaken the law or the prophets. I have not come to weaken, but to fulfill. So, and that's been, but which law? This is so important, because soon after that, he differentiates between the law that he's following, which is the law of the Father, versus the law that the society lives by. And that's something that constantly, I read the news a lot. I pay close attention to current events. And one of the things that um, surprises me is that after all we know, all we've learned, we think that the laws that we wrote are applicable to all. And we constantly try to pass laws to control more and more. And the intention of the law typically is to bring goodness. But the law becomes a burden after a while. And Jesus was living under a lot of laws. Remember, they have the Roman law, and there's the law of religion that he belonged to. And everybody around him had the same restrictions. The Samaritans had their own belief system and their own laws, and they were under occupation. The Phoenicians and the Canaanites, the same thing. The people in Damascus and Syria, Aram, same thing. They all had these, dual systems usually, that were supposed to govern them and give them a good life, and a religion that make them thrive and be happy and experience joy, ends up being a burden. How many steps did you walk? Did you pay your taxes? You have to serve in the military. You have to, do this. You have to do that. So that's what laws do. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not even a jot or a dash shall pass away from the law until all of it is fulfilled. So he really had this very strong belief that the law of the Father, that goodness will prevail. So, and that's very core for anybody who wants to follow Jesus, is to not to falter, not to go away, not to be tempted. This is a core belief system, is that this system works and works for all, but we have to participate and we have to stay true to it. That's why he's even right before the light, he talks about the salt. So he's calling them, you are the salt of the earth. And you have to stay good, because if the salt spoils, if you give up, everything falls apart. So that's why he's saying we have to stay true, and that's why he did not run away when the cross was facing him, and when he knew he might have to go all the way, but he was hopeful and up to the last minute, and he did not want to play by their laws. So whoever therefore, so now he's equating it, okay, equating the law of God and the prophets with the existing law. Whoever tries to weaken even one of the least of these commandments and teaches men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But anyone who observes and teaches them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. I think we talked about that this past Saturday. For I say to you that unless your righteousness exceeds that, okay, so now he's setting the standard, exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. So to participate, you can't set religion as your bar. Then this is a rabbi. This is and he wasn't known as a rabbi. It's, as a spiritual teacher, a malpana. He's telling his followers and all these people who are listening to him, you know, if you think scribe or Pharisee, who's the highest in your community, is the standard, I'm telling you, you're not even going to be in the kingdom of heaven. You have to exceed that. That's a big standard to exceed. Imagine if I tell you, you have to be better than the minister at your church. You have to be a better employee than the CEO of your company. You have to be better than that. You know, if you're a nurse or if you're somebody who pushes the patients in wheelchairs in the hospital, you have to be better than the head of the hospital. Now you're talking about a true follower of Jesus. And do you see how that, you know, imagine if all the employees of that hospital are working their butts off, not to follow what their leader says, but to be good to every patient who walks in and every family who walks into that hospital. And no matter what their need is or what insurance they have or insurance they don't have or language they speak or the color of their skin, we are going to do everything in our power to help you. That's when that hospital becomes a light. That's when, because of the employees, that's how society changes. And that's what Jesus, so here it's like, if you think that the highest thing that you look at is the standard, no, you have to be better than that. Those are the early Christians. Those are the early followers of Jesus. And those are you today. So I'm not saying that's impossible. That's who we are today. That's how we are going to change. Then he says, for I say to you, no, I read that one. You have heard that it was said to you, to those who were before you, you shall not kill, and you shall, and whoever kills is guilty before the court. And that's so important. That word, I highlighted it and I highlight it again. You're guilty before the court, not before God, but before the court, because that's who legislates and governs these very low-level laws that we establish to have a society. You have to be above that. Okay, the court, avoiding the court, avoiding that societal law should not be the goal of every Christian or every follower of Jesus. You need to be above that law. You need to be better than that law. And that's why I started saying how today when I follow the news, I hear about, you know, X is doing, you know, the law says blah, 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 and X is totally violating that law. And we all go like, oh, you know, bring him to court. Well, the court is part of their system. It never touches them. Now, if you mess up the same exact thing, and you don't have that power and you don't belong to that elite group that governs the law, you are in trouble. And we see that. I mean, we have a ton of movies, a ton of articles, a ton of daily events. I bet you if I opened up my browser right now and I read you something to happen today, and we feel so self-righteous about it. It's like, how, you know, we have a rule in place. How could we, you know, how could they break it and get away with that? Because it's their system. It's not your system. Your system is to be above that. And until we change, we're constantly, I see post after post after post after post on Instagram, on Facebook, of people I love. And I know that they know this, but it wears us down and it makes us feel almost helpless. We need to go above that. We need to start to go back to the roots of this movement, to improve, to change society from within, to bring in the next gen. As I said, that the Christians became the early followers became part of the government systems, became right arm of the prime minister or the king or the the advisors to the even the generals would consult with them. And believe me, when you're listening to if life takes me into an area where I'm advising a general who's only thinking of war and winning and battling, you can even change that mindset into peaceful takeovers, into peace negotiations, so you don't have to shed blood unnecessarily, and you can change even the concept of war until it doesn't exist anymore. So there are so many things that we take for granted, and we constantly, sometimes I'm guilty of it, playing games that have that nature to them. It's been many years since I did, but at the time, and I see how younger generations, a lot of that, video games, online games, all the gaming systems are about creating that, shoot and kill and escape and collaborate with your friends to beat up somebody else. And as parents, as grandparents, as individuals, we should be basically boycotting those things. We should let them, not have any sales and go away. And we should encourage our brothers and sisters and whoever has kids, don't introduce them to this mindset. Don't buy them that play gun and play arrow and play sword. And go walk in any aisle and in any toy store and any grocery store that sells toys, and to Target, anywhere. And those toys are constantly there. We need to get them out of the mindset. We need to get them away that this is not the way to live. This is not how you solve your problems. But I say to you that whoever becomes angry with his brother for no reason is guilty before the court. So his court, if not if you kill, you're guilty. If you become angry with your brother or your sister, and you act upon it. That's see, sometimes we do get angry, and I'm not expecting, and neither did Jesus, because he himself got angry at times. And I just answered a question on YouTube. Somebody was asking if Jesus actually whipped people. He never whipped people. Jesus turned the tables and was upset and yelled at the merchants, but he never, he had so much respect for human life and human beings. He would have never hurt somebody. And that's the mindset. But so but to be angry is figuring out, why am I getting angry with my brother and sister? And his court, that's almost as bad. So, they set the bar at killing, he set the bar at anger. And then he continues. And whoever should say to his brother, Raka, and this is Dr. Lamza because it's Aramaic, which means I spit on you. And that's huge in the Near East. Spitting on people is a big reason for a lot of fights, and it's part of the culture. So it's guilty before the congregation, and whoever says to his brother, "You are effeminate," is condemned to hellfire, which is, you're going to be mentally tormented, psychologically, when you are mean to somebody, to call them a name. It should eat you from the inside, and until you reconcile that and you stop doing that. So see the system of Jesus. Moses said kill. Jesus says angry, calling people names, spitting at somebody. Okay, because it's a sign of disrespect. That starts a lot of fights too when you spit at somebody. So and we saw it. Funnily enough, I think the first NFL game of the season this year, one guy got under the skin of another guy before the game even started, and he spat on him, got caught, and got ejected from the game and got suspended for a few games, I believe. So even to this day, that spitting, that person should have read Jesus and his minister should have, emphasized the teachings of Jesus instead of talking about heaven and hell and the Magi. These are the things that change society. Is changing also. Jesus is working with his culture and he's changing the culture. So how often do we hear that? That those name calling and things like that, and some often people just we're so programmed to accept it, we let it pass. It needs to be uprooted, removed from society, and not used anymore, just like the toy guns and the violent games. If it should happen, therefore, that while you are presenting your offering, religion loves this one. I think I've done it once in a church. Probably would have came close to facing the same thing. When you're presenting your offering upon the altar, and right there you remember that your brother has any grievance against you. And here he is not talking just your brother by blood, anybody you call brother. Leave your offering there upon the altar and first go and make peace with your brother and then come back and present your offering. So it's more important that we create peace in our community, peace in our society than tithing, than fulfilling a religious duty and supporting our religious institution. More important, he said, this is Jesus' instruction. So and I've said this before, imagine if your minister or your imam or your, whoever your spiritual leader is, telling you, it's like, hey, don't put anything in the basket if you have any grievance with anybody you know. Go make it up, make peace with them, and then come back and put your money in or your offering, whatever format it is, in the basket. Imagine how that would change the community of that church or that mosque and that's the mindset that Jesus was implementing. So this is the revolution. It's everybody. He's ripping all the standards, the laws, the resistance, the resistance to laws and rules. All these things, he's taking them away and reformatting the people. That's why he says you have to be born again. Because if these are the standards, this is the highest thing to become as good as a Pharisee, or your highest standard is I'm a good tither. He's going like, no, that's not good enough. You need to be better than that. How are we doing on time? We have 20 minutes. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A. I usually leave about 10, 15 minutes at the end to answer questions. So try to get reconciled with your accuser promptly while you are going, one more, while you're going on the road with him, for your accuser might surrender you to the judge. See, here we think a judge is a good person, and the judge would commit you to the jailer and you would be cast into prison. So, and now we're seeing judges because we're seeing so much, I'm not going to call it corruption. I'm just saying we're seeing how the system is working. For many years, up to about 20 years ago, we were still relying on 3, 4 channels to give us the news. We're relying on the local paper to tell us what's going on, and some national pieces that made it in. Now we have like instant information and constantly getting, things are being leaked. And there is also a lot of available information that now we're going like, what judge would side with that group or make that decision? And if a good judge does, guess what? We're going to take it to a higher judge who might not, and another higher judge, and another higher judge. So that system, even the legal system that we have, which is the same one that Jesus was pointing the finger at, is doing the same thing. That it did it historically 2,000 years ago, because its job is not to be good to people. Its job is to first support itself, and then to make sure that the government, that the ruling group, whoever it is actually blessing them, keeping them in place, keeping their salaries going, keeping their system going. So it's very hard to find a good judge. That's why Jesus also has a parable about the judge and the woman, the widow who pestered him, because he could see that. And sometimes you can get into the heart of a judge. As I said, when a judge makes a good decision, and there are many judges that do, usually there is a way to bypass them, go above them, go above them, go above them, until you hit a point where either that the situation is already passed, and we see a lot of that's part of the political legal system game, is sometimes you just keep escalating and things get tabled and so forth until the crime is meaningless or the punishment is meaningless, or by the time the punishment lands, it's that the person who committed the crime or made the error is no longer impacted by what the law says they need to do. So we see a lot of that, and I know it angers us. I know it upsets us because we put a lot of stock into the system we are a part of. But until you kind of separate yourself and say, no, that's not the system I live by. I live by the system of the Father, and I have the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth to lead me through that life journey. Then you start experiencing joy. You start experiencing change, peace. And Jesus needed that. So he constantly also separated himself, especially when he was with big crowds. We read a lot. It's usually like one little a verse in the Bible. It's really, it was a sentence that the writers put in. It's like, oh, and then he left everybody and went to the wilderness so he could pray and reflect. And that's where he got that was his recharging system. And I've seen people who are 24/7 in front of a screen, and whether it's the news or their work to news to whatever you care about, you need that time to recharge. You need that time to reflect. You need that time to process what's going on. And then if you're rooted in these teachings, you start, these teachings start festering in you, and you start seeing the news from a different perspective. You stop being angry. You stop being, wanting revenge and wanting to bring people to the law and to the court. And you start seeing the world, and it's like, oh, look at this dynamic. It's almost like a show in front of you. And sometimes shows do upset us and do reflect, what's going on in society. But ultimately, what you start functioning above that, and you start seeing all of that for what it really is, which is just a game that is not the truth. And that's what we're after here. That Jesus's joy is filled with truth about who we are, what we are, and what life should be like. And he lived it. He day to day he had that, and he had the ability to heal people. He had the ability to teach. He had the ability to touch so many lives. And here he is. So in 2000 years later, he's reaching us, the people who are studying him. Okay, we're at 15 minutes. Let me continue. So try to reconcile, because the judge is going to put you through the system. Truly, I say to you that you would never come out thence until you had paid the last cent. You have heard that it is said, you shall not commit adultery. Again, one of the laws of Moses. Because it's a property law. So he's going like, okay, so now if you commit adultery, but I say to you that whoever looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Root cause, right? It's like if so, and societies, especially, and we see this today in some countries in the Middle East. I'm not going to list them because there are too many of them, to be honest, where because how society views women and how the governments are very oppressive towards women, the dynamics have not really changed, and it makes it very hard for people to meet, fall in love, start a family, And and I can imagine anything, all the non heterosexual relationships are even viewed, especially in well, actually it's almost in every society, where and some of it comes back to misinterpretation of the Bible, but th those people suffer heavily. So, but here we're talking about something slightly different, which is property law as well. So we're not just talking about relationships, we're talking about property relationships. And if you're not familiar with that, go read adultery, and maybe I'll do, or ask me the question of how what adultery means biblically versus how it became and understood in society today. If your right eye should cause you to stumble, pluck it out. And so these are Aramaic, colloquial ways of speaking, metaphorical ways of speaking. And I know if you're not from there, you think, oh, is Jesus really telling me that, my eye is bad, so I'm gonna literally take it out? No, he is just saying, quit it, quit it, quit it. So if you have envy, if you are looking at other property and wanting to, wanting to take it away from those people, then you're better off quitting that than suffering either way, suffering with doing something and paying for it, or continuing to suffer because you lack that. And that's why I said about the commercials on TVs and stuff like that. They bring that desire. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get that car, to get that house, to live the life of the rich and famous. And some of those are titled that way. Um, so whatever he talks about the right hand, he talks about your leg, which all means stealing, walking into or going to places you're not supposed to go to. So quit the bad habits, quit the things that get you in trouble and make you suffer also because you're doing the wrong things. It has been said that whoever divorces his wife must give her the divorce papers. This is one of the most important areas of the Lamsa translation that differs from other translations of the Bible into English, because this is the foundation. This is where the theology or of people not divorcing in some religions and so forth. Jewish religion allowed divorce, and a divorced woman had full rights in her society, including dating other men, married or unmarried, because she's no longer. That's why I talked about the adultery, but and that the fact that it's a property law, not a moral law. And Jesus was very aware of that, and that what was happening in his time, probably happened before him, and it continues to happen after him, is the women who marry, sometimes their husbands throw them out without giving them the divorce paper. And this is where Jesus was very, very pro women in making sure that they get their rights. Because if a woman had her paper with her, then she can remarry, she can be integrated back into society, she can get work, there are so many things. Her family might take her back. But if she's thrown out, she's basically the property of the husband, and now she's out on her own without being able to do anything. And they're the ones who ended up on the side of the road. They're the ones who Jesus advocated for when they got in trouble, like in John and the woman who was about to be stoned. So Jesus here, the translation is so clear in the Lamsa translation about giving her that paper. And then Jesus continues and says, divorce is not a good idea because it does destroy family. It does have a big impact economically and on society for his time. Today, we have a different structure, but believe it or not, there are still religions today that use this to control their people and what they can and can't do. So with that, I'm going to stop. I have about 10 minutes. I see one question. And the question is, thank you, Annie. Um, well, you're very welcome. Anything else? Um, and it doesn't have to be about tonight's session. If not, I'm going to say happy holidays. Take these with you. Take Jesus's method with you into the holidays. I know some for a lot of us it's stressful time. It can be stressful because of the relationships and the pressures there. Could be stressful because of the financial impact. And it is a cold, typically in most of the at least where I live in the West, it's a cold time of the year. I have family in the Southern Hemisphere, and this is their summertime and fun summer vacation, beach time. But stay healthy, stay happy, bring that light to your community, bring that light to your family and the people who challenge you the most at work, and your neighborhood, in your past, and give them love, give them blessings, and I'll see you in 2026. So happy New Year, and until next time.